Standby like Q's 2 through 33, sound 1A through 7. On deck, standby Q actors. Electrics, kill the blue run lights, please. Like Q 2 and sound 1A. Go.
From Arizona Theater Company, this is Hang in Focus with your host, John Daniels.
As someone that grew up in Arizona, it's a great way for us to share the work that we do worldwide.
And featuring co-host Janelle Bragg.
That is our responsibility, is to reflect what is going on in the world.
Streaming live from the State Theater of Arizona.
Let's do it. Let's really use this moment to re-envision ourselves.
Welcome to Hang in Focus, live with Sean Daniels.
This is the new Arizona Theater Company. I'm just glad that you're here.
On today's show, from ATC's upcoming digital audio play, The HEATH, playwright Lauren Gunderson and sound designer Danny Erdberg.
And welcome to the show. Chanel, come on out and say hello.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Good. How are you, Chanel? How are things?
I'm feeling so great. The weekend is here. I'm excited about that. I'm going to get my hair braided. So I hope my hair appointment stays, intact because of COVID protocols and things like that. But I'm really excited. So I should have a new hairdo next week.
We will all tune in for that. That will be exciting.
Just for that. How's your week been?
It's good. You know what? Today, what I was telling everyone before the show, it feels like the real beginning. Like I had an in-person business lunch in the afternoon. I know. And then tonight I'm having a date with my wife, which that may not have happened for years. I'm not sure, in terms of what it is, because we had, we have an almost 3-year-old. And so we've been, in lockdown for a year and a half, but, suddenly we have a babysitter. Suddenly restaurants are open. We're going to do an escape room, which appeals to her German sensibility of solving things.
That's amazing. And you're doubly immunized, right?
And because we had COVID and we've had one shot, supposedly we are like over the moon in terms of being covered to be able to do it. So I don't know. It today feels like it's happening, right? We're slowly getting back to a little bit of the real world.
No, absolutely. Which is why I was like, okay, I've been terrified. I took up doing my own hair, doing my own eyebrows, those hygienic services. I was like, I'm not going to catch COVID to get a haircut. It's just not that serious to me. And so I'm really excited that now I felt, because I am also, I had the vaccination, that I feel comfortable and confident that I can enter the world. So that's exciting.
I know. It's thrilling. So we have a really exciting episode here. 2 of my favorite people and a project that I can't wait to share with everybody in Arizona. So we have, as you heard Will talk about coming in, we have The HEATH coming up by Lauren Gunderson, starring Lauren Gunderson and John Larroquette. So let's go ahead and bring out to the show playwrights Lauren Gunderson and sound designer Danny Erdberg. Hello.
Yay. Batty?
Hey, great to be here.
So for people that don't know, but you should know, Lauren Gunderson is quite accomplished. She is the most produced playwright in the country 2 out of the last 3 years. All right, that's pretty fancy. And for years before that, she was second only to August Wilson in terms of plays produced in the country. Now, August Wilson, she was, of course, at some point stopped writing plays, and that allowed Lauren to jump over him to be able to do it. Yeah. But I think it just really shows, the quality and just the fact that this country responds so greatly to her work, right? You can be popular in one area, you could be popular in another. To be the most produced playwright in the country, that means, right, the United States of America are interested in the work that you do. And so we're
a woman. So that's what's up.
That's right. That's right.
Amazing.
And Danny Erdberg is a sound designer, composer, and a little bit of everything to make it happen. I have had the privilege of working with Danny on multiple shows, and you were in New York and now you're out in LA. And as soon as you arrived in LA, already put to work, right? Like on everyone needs sound at this point.
It's true, absolutely. Although this has been I think the longest. Right, this is only. I was thinking about this today. This is one of only 2 like major works of the last year. Because we just hit our 1-year anniversary of all this.
Right.
I was thinking about the week around March 15th last year when all 14 shows or whatever I had lined up for this year took a dive, and within the couple of weeks after that, there were 2 projects that came, and this was one of them. So it feels really great that we're we're finally, going to share this with the world. This is a piece that I just love. I did it with you, Sean,
Right.
at Merrimack years ago, the live one. And it's one of those that I had been hoping would have a life past that, because it was I thought it was such a special one. So I'm really excited that we're sort of putting it down, in a way that's more permanent. And I really think this is it's an amazing way to share this. It worked, really exceeded my already high expectations for how cool it would be as a podcast. So I'm so thrilled.
So let's talk a little bit just about what it is for people that don't know what it is. They know that we're all excited, and that's good. But like, what is it about? So Lauren, can you just tell us a little bit about your impulse for writing The Heath?
Sure. So the Heath, the title comes from a location in the play King Lear, which is the location where King Lear is kind of at his most mad. He is alone on a heath, which is basically a big old field, as a massive storm is coming across. And previously, he's tried to get into his daughter's house, and she has rejected him. And he is naked with one little friend to help him, and yelling to God and nature and time and fate about his own fate. So that's the title. Low stakes, no drama there. But really, what it becomes is it is a story about my grandfather, Katie Martin, from South Carolina, who is not a king, and but shared a bit of King Lear's fate, shared a dementia that we realized was Alzheimer's late in life, and it's what he died from. And watching my grandfather go through that, he just brings up all the things that anyone who's experienced that goes through, questions of course, mortality, but sanity and self and family and devotion. And are you the same person? Do you know who I am? What does it mean to be if everything that made you is now gone? So all of those questions, which feel very Shakespearean, but also the fact that he and I were very different. And I was the person who read King Lear, and I was the person who cared about all things Shakespearean, and he didn't. He was a Southern Christian white man who was a POW, a war vet from World War II, grew up on a farm with 19 other siblings. And, I always thought he was kind of, as the play says, of no importance. And because I went to college and I studied Shakespeare, well, I know what's important. And so the play is really a discovery of him and me, and how we come to know each other and talk to each other and understand each other and respect each other, even if we think at first we are of no importance to one another. And how this great Shakespearean story, how can that be the same story as my humble pawpaw from South Carolina? Of course, they're the same story. That's why Shakespeare wrote it. That's why I'm trying to write this, to say that there is grand universality in what we go through. And it's wild that it's me. I mean, the character is called Lauren, which is, it's always very silly when Sean gives a note and be like, so I think what Lauren's going through here. And I'm like, oh, that's so weird. But it felt like, of all the plays to be vulnerable and personal, this is one. He was, I saw him lose himself. The least I could do was to kind of tell his story with my whole self. So it's kind of, it's what it's about.
And I think what's really beautiful about it, and why I think it's an important play for 2021, is that it asks the question of, could we ever look for similarities with someone else, right? Or do differences define us, right? And I think as a country right now, right, differences do define us. If you are one thing, you are not the other. If you are this, you must be against that. And so the idea of like, if you're agree with someone 90%, is that enough to be able to love them for who they are? And I just feel like, I know that that's what you battle with personally, but it feels like as a country right now, that's the whole front of the New York Times, is like, these people disagree with this. Will anything ever change? Yeah. And I just think you're tackling that thing on a very small, level, person to person, right? Which is the only way that things get changed.
Well, and that's the power of storytelling, right? And why it's so important. And as a playwright, and this is really what you do, could you kind of talk a little bit about the power of storytelling and why it's important?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think about it every day. I think, so the truth is my personal nerdness is always trying to unpack why we tell stories at all. Like, why fiction? We have fact, we have statistic, we have history, things that definitely happened. Why on earth do we need to make stuff up as a species? But we do, and every version of the human species does and has. So there's something there. And what's there is a tool. It's a tool for us to understand things that we have been through and the things we haven't, and the things we're likely to go through. Because everyone goes through it. This is life and death stuff, love and heartbreak and triumph and sorrow and losing people and losing oneself, et cetera, et cetera. So I think of the power of storytelling is we need it because we don't know all the things. Nobody knows all the things. And it is one of those tools that we can use to understand each other, to give our attention over for an hour or two to somebody else's story in total. You know, that's actually kind of rare these days, much less watching as somebody makes decisions and we go, what would I do? That reminds me of someone, that reminds me of myself. God, I would never do that. All of those things are teaching us and prompting us and encouraging us and challenging us. And that's what story does. It can, yes, also make you laugh, also make you sing along, delight and entertain, of course. But even, in fact, the most entertaining things are probably doing the most work to make us pay attention so that when we go through something hilarious or terrible, that we have some practice. It's my friend Bill English calls theater the empathy gym. It's where you go to like work out your empathy, practice it so that when you need it, you have it.
Did you read the book Sapiens?
Yes. Oh, love that book.
Yeah, that if anybody wants to get into like a deep dive on what it is. Anyway, the thing that's in there, it says the thing that separates us from animals is the ability to believe in fiction. Right? Like that's what's allowed us to evolve as a species, right? Like you can't.
And we go from, well, yes, that you go like, okay, we can tell a story about a lion, but can you tell a story about a lion that talks? A lion that, is a god? A lion, I mean, there is no more like the lion's over there. It's like the lion has sentience and is in love with the cow and like, what? Who comes up with that? Like, it's got to be of some use, right? Anyway, yes, I love that book.
Yeah. And it's what allows tribes to exist larger than 100 people, right? Like that allows us all to be able to say like, oh, we all believe in these same things. Yeah. And my mind was blown by that. It has a great example of like, you can't convince monkeys to not eat bananas because they'll get 100 bananas in the afterlife, right? Like they're unable to understand that. And therefore the tribe can only be so large. But for us as humans, right, because we can believe in storytelling, we're able to have a much larger community than anyone else. Yeah, it's a mind-blowing book. It's like 1,000 pages long. So you have to start now to be able to get.
If it's on an audiobook, I'm here for it.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like the first third that's about all this story stuff. So you can like.
That's right. I think the end ends up being about like robots in the future and you can skim that part, right? Yeah, be able to do it. So, one of the things also that we talked about early on was like, we wanted to present this play. We felt like it was important to do it. We had an opportunity for Lauren to do it because it would be a one-time thing, but how to present it. And we eventually landed on doing it as an audio play. And that's where Danny comes even more heavily into this. Because I think, for me, there's something about Lear being on the heath and the size that wants to be. And you want to be able to see someone, in the rain, screaming at the gods to be able to do it. And I think you just can't do that in Zoom boxes, or it might accidentally be funny to be doing something of that size in a Zoom box. It's like we could have John Larroquette and you could see his kitchen behind him while he yells at the sky, but that doesn't really, pull it off. But like through an audio play, which is really like an kind of an older version of theater, we can recreate and let your minds do the majority of the work of what it is for him to be there. So Danny came on early and has been in the thick of it ever since.
Sure.
So Danny, what's it like to be, I mean, in many ways, like we're all a part of this, but you're also like the main storyteller in setting the scene, in the same way that like a director of photography would be on a film.
Yeah, or an editor. Yeah, this has been a very strange process. This is another thing I've been thinking about and talking about with friends lately. Obviously I've sound designed a million plays, but you're a collaborator in that. You're working closely in a room with a bunch of other people who are also working temporally, to tell the story. And I've also done like post-production sound for film, but that's quite different as well. That's you're given a finish, like a locked picture, and you end up, creating sound to accompany that. But everything's fixed at the point that you get it, usually, more or less. This I got, we did all these recordings. And we did them over the internet, and we used a really cool sort of service that allowed us to record in high quality. But what it didn't exactly let us do, and there's really nothing that would let us do this, is sort of give Lauren and John, the experience of really being able to play off each other well, and in real time, and to your credit, you both did an incredible job. But when we were looking at these tapes, nothing quite lined up. So the very first thing that I did was split every line into a chunk, right? And I mean, we're talking like probably like 6,000 chunks, right? And line them up and think about, because there's something very different in the way that people respond. You learn so much about how people are thinking in the time that they take, right? And how quickly someone responds. If someone jumps right on quick, or if someone lets a question linger for a second and then answers. So, I mean, part of what took so long, and this was the perfect COVID, I don't think this project could have happened any time other than now, because there would have never been time for it. We would have just had to just do it. But I've been able to spend so much time on every one of those questions and sort of nudge it a little over, a little, and just play it again and again and think, is this saying what it needs to say? So there's almost like a dramaturgical or an editorial aspect to it. And Sean and I have gone back and forth about, there were ones that I was like, I don't know if this is the right job. And Sean's like, yeah, that's right. Or no, we need to leave, you need to leave just a little more, doubt in that or something yeah. So the other thing too, of course, is, because of the way we were doing takes, often, I would look at a scene and we would have 5 or 6 different takes. And I don't think there was a single scene where we could just use one take straight. There was always something, like a bump on the microphone or like Lauren's kids outside yelling about, I don't know what they wanted. Yeah, maybe she was in the closet recording. So
they always want snacks.
Is that
that's mostly what yelling is about. Yeah.
Yeah, I figured. But or something, something, or we just, someone would go in a slightly different direction. So often, I would listen to all the takes, or would find one take that was going to be sort of like the lead take, that was mostly right. But then inevitably there would be 1 or 2 lines that weren't quite right. So then I'd end up diving through the other takes to try and find one. And then you try and figure out, can it cut in? Does it sound right? You spend a lot of time, listening back and closing your eyes and playing, and you're like, does that sound right? The process has really been just an unbelievable amount of work, so that it should feel like no work at all. It should just feel inevitable and natural. You shouldn't think about the sound design or the production. You should just be taken on, Lauren's sort of incredible journey. It should just be a really pleasant, engaging place to be for 90 minutes, Yeah.
But I just think it's fascinating the power you have that normally takes multiple designers to set a moment. You suddenly, and every time you send it, you're always like, put on headphones, don't look at anything else, just listen to it, and it's it's good advice. Don't check your email while you're just actually close your eyes and listen to it, because then you can really hear, it's I hear the rain starting, and it's incredibly transportive, and you can realize why this was actually such a big art form for so long in a way to tell stories, right?
Well, that was, I mean, the original rain, it's funny. I grew up actually in San Francisco, and we used to go skiing on weekends in Lake Tahoe. It's the only sport I was ever good at was skiing. So there's this 3-hour drive that we had to fill, my parents, me being 7 or 8. So the thing that we used to fill it with were these, like, it's like the 80s, right? So these cassette tapes of old radio programs, of old like 50s like radio programs that they'd grown up with. So I actually have these wonderful memories. Sometimes they call it theater of the air, but the other thing that they called it was theater of the mind, which I just love, right? Because the whole thing takes place. Yeah. So I have these wonderful memories of these like 3-hour car rides and being transported with the Lone Ranger, like out, right? I mean, it's really incredible. Yeah, sound also is one of those things. Visuals are they're literal, right? It's why like early video design in theater I thought was really difficult, because it was necessarily low res and all, and it just is what it is. Now video design has gotten incredible, obviously, but there's a visual literalism to that sort of thing. Sound it's plastic, right? It's fluid. It creates associations. It also neurologically ties into, our reptile brain. Sound is, we're very attuned. I mean, I don't know if you've ever had that experience, like you're lying in bed and you're almost asleep and there's some sound that it's out of place, and it like jolts you. And that's because that's how, we were designed to cognate sound. It's a very old process, right? And so you can often use sound to sort of get past people's sort of conscious brain and get right to emotion. It can be a real, we do that a lot in theater, right? We try and trigger like emotion, not manipulatively, but in a way that supports, our storytelling and allows people to sort of gently go there.
There was an amazing study done on parents and children that the sound that your child cries at is different for everyone, and it's exactly the sound that you cannot stand, which is is like so that like you can hear your child cry through a wall or amidst other children and know exactly what it is, because it is exactly the sound, and it's what keeps the species alive, right? Theoretically, you would be able to hear what that sound is and it would pierce all other sounds. And it's like, wow, it's amazing that in our brains is triggered and organized, that our brain knows what sounds it is that we cannot stand, and therefore it passes it on to our children.
I don't really realize this, but I'm sorry, Shadal.
No, that's so true though. My best friend and I just hung out the other night and we were in her driveway and she goes, "Did you hear that scream?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I heard nothing. And she walked over, opened up her garage door and was like, "Stop yelling in the house." And I'm like, "How did you hear that?" So you're right, Sean. That's hilarious.
But it's actually our brains are organized as a way to keep the species going, that you can hear your child, through walls, because it is an exact frequency that you particularly cannot stand.
Yeah, we're much better at hearing than we are at seeing, which is funny because you would never think that. We think that we're much better at seeing, but it's a really interesting sense.
Yeah, and what I loved about even hearing the early drafts of this is like, it's really, I mean, you're right. Visually, it's so literal, right? Like on stage, it's theatrical, right? So I see two chairs and you tell me it's a Heath, I believe it's a Heath. On TV, like I want to see the whole thing, right? and even then, it's like maybe not. It's not exactly what I pictured, but in sound, right? I'm picturing exactly what it is I want to, and I feel like I'm there.
Well,
right?
Yeah, you'll go there, right? You'll create all the visuals, and inevitably they'll be way better than we certainly could have. Yeah, done on our shoestring.
Yeah. So Lauren, you're playing you in this piece, right?
Yeah.
And I'd love just to talk a little bit about that. So I've been lucky enough to work with several different people on like their true story things. Yeah. And it definitely is a different journey, I feel like, for everyone to have to portray themselves. One of the things that we talked about early is I feel like the common trap for anybody when they do true person material is that they at first represent themselves as a really charming person that a series of unfortunate events has happened to, which I think is how we think of our lives, and it's like, that's not actually dramatic structure, right? Dramatic structure is that like foolish people make horrible choices and we root for them and hope that they make it through alive, right? And that's hard to do when that's you. right? When that's you presenting yourself. So what's just a little of the journey of playing you? Because you played you in a workshop, but then you didn't play it in the first production, and now you're playing you here.
Yes. Yeah. The workshop was, and that made more sense. I was still trying to figure out what it was. And the role of KD, played in this version by the absolutely incredible John Larroquette, has grown a ton since that workshop. I originally conceived it as a one-person show with kind of maybe you hear the character, and then it just became like, why am I? No, he's got to show up. This is a show about him. What? Come on, Lauren. So the idea of kind of the ever expanding role of this character who plays both my grandfather and King Lear, just a minor Titanic character in Western literature. But, so to your point, Sean, you can't write a character that's learned the lesson before they learn it. So it's easy to start the show going, I'm about to learn some things, but I already know those things, which is why it's safe. I'm safe, you're safe, we're all safe, but no, you have to start out saying dumb stuff that isn't right, that you learn exactly why. And we need to know when you learn it. So as me, I have to go back and think, what were some examples of those moments when I thought like, oh, that was a shitty thing to do. So, and let it be crappy, let it be rude, let it be unpolished and unkind. Because everyone's done something like that to somebody. And that's, again, the whole point of why we're doing this together, is to say like, oh yeah, I did that once, or somebody did that to me, and on and on. So that was the real issue. And so I wrote it the charming way first, and then Sean goes, so couple notes. and then it's like going back in and making it real, which means it's gruff, and it's unorganized, and it's not structurally, it's very structurally organized, but it is emotionally disorganized, because the whole point is a character is never feeling just one thing at a time. And it's easier if they do, but they never do, the good ones at least. So trying to track that. And then, the gift of this is not just the radio version and the chance to play it, because I don't necessarily fancy myself a fabulous actor, but I know me, and I know this world, and that felt worthy of kind of saying, well, if I'm going to ask somebody else to play me, I might as well play it myself. And the chance to kind of tap into whatever extra sparkle there might be, whatever extra richness there is in somebody knowing exactly what happened to create this story, the exact memory, the exact smell, the exact, course of events, the exact look that was given that prompted that memory. There's got to be something worth capturing in that. So I feel lucky to have done it. Lucky to, again, this is a COVID thing. I am terrified of acting. It's way too hard. I don't know how anyone does it. You have to show up every night and do the same thing. It's just too much. So I'm usually happy to be the writer in the back being like, great job, guys. I'm going to go. Bye. So to do it in this way with this incredible talent of, John, I hope we get to brag on him for a moment, because he is as charming and kind as you could ever imagine him to be, and absolutely brilliant. And it reminds me why I always want to cast comedians in everything, because I know a comedian has extra control of their instrument, of their instinct, of their timing, of the specific technical parts of acting that just a lot of actors who don't have that natural comic instinct don't have it as much. They excel at other things, of course, but comedians, they're going to hit that beat. They're going to make it sharp and perfect. And so I'm reminded, working with the kind of incredible comedian, like the national treasure that is John Larroquette, why that is true. And because there's dexterity and agility and intelligence in every single choice that he certainly brought it to this project.
So were there moments though that were hard to do as you, or to write? It just, I don't. Oh
yeah.
Yeah.
The hardest stuff was the stuff that I certainly thought as a younger person, and it is hard to say them out loud now. Things like, I thought he was stupid. I thought he didn't even get near to finishing high school. He So kind of a Southern farmer guy. I loved him deeply, and he couldn't be more kind and tolerant of anything I wanted to talk about. But as a kid, I thought like, he doesn't know as much as I do. He's not worldly. He's not studied. And, so I think that is the great regret of that relationship, but that's what it had to be about, right? Because we are right now, as you point out, Sean, we think that about a lot of people that are not us.
That's
and
true.
how do we say, what is the thing that they know more than you do? What is the experience that they know for sure that you don't? And part of that is when I really dove into his war experience and realizing the absolute incomparable bravery and courage and intelligence and wit and guile that you have to have to survive what he went through, and looking at those details and all of that just made me see a person that I didn't know. Plus a lot of other memories about his youth and his love of my grandmother and on and on. And so the play really comes to a head. And there's parts of me that he didn't understand. He was like, I do not understand this vegetarian thing. I don't understand. Is it theater or film? What do you do? Who cares about? I don't get it. Like, we were not speaking each other's language. So it wasn't just me. It was a lot of me, but that's the truth with everybody, right? How do you come together and find that? So the joyful parts were actually the most fictional parts, were the kind of conversations that didn't totally get to happen in the way that I wish they could have. But the play, being, as the play says, it is an instrument of resurrection. We get to review things, relive things, refeel things. And the gift of that is kind of part of the kind of magic of the ending is getting to say a couple of those things. There's several lines that I would like to quote, but I don't want to ruin it for people.
Can I appeal to your actor brain though for just a second?
Sure.
So the thing about the repetition of doing the show every single night is that you get to give honor to the words of the author, and then you also within yourself get to decide, what am I going to bring new to this role every single night? So I'm wondering what kind of push are you having within yourself as you're performing your own work, but making these discoveries as an actress? What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that was in the Shakespeare, and Sean was giving, and Danny both were giving great direction in terms of how do you play it different, because the character of Lauren falls into some of the Shakespeare that she is putting on the memory of her grandfather as well. So Shakespeare shows up a bunch. So how do you tackle that? How do you say, I'm sorry, I love you, in the way that you really do mean it? And authenticity looks different to every person. And so really trying to say, is the character's authenticity and my authenticity the same? And sometimes yes, and sometimes no. And how that needs to work with the other actor. And to kind of match what John was doing, but it was a bit foreign. I mean, I haven't acted in a long time. There's a lot of this. I just kept having to stop and just laugh at myself a little bit and be like, "Good Lord, Lauren, you are not trained. You are not trained." And then, of course, there's a lot of song in the show as well. It's also about a discovery through music of how to speak to each other through hymns that my grandfather loved and bluegrass banjo. And so that was a whole nother thing of going, and she's got to sing. Oh Lord.
I would challenge anybody to listen to this and not feel like you're speaking directly to your grandfather. I mean, I've listened to it so many times, and sorry, of course, now there's like a lawnmower outside. But I've listened to it so many times, and there's something really beautiful. There's one line in the show that she said that's this is not the conversation that we had. This is a conversation I wish we had. And to me, it's like such a poignant thing. I mean, who doesn't have that with, a grandparent or a parent or, somebody that we've lost? There's something really special, I think, about constructing these conversations. And you do it in such a loving, respectful way. Like, I feel like you honor him so deeply in constructing his side of the conversation. Mm-hmm. It's really it's a gorgeous thing.
Thanks. I mean, that was a lot of working with John. I think those lines in particular expanded because of what he was bringing to it. And frankly, knowing I got to write for him, I was like, you got to write some more jokes, Lauren.
That's right.
He is very funny. Yeah.
He's so good.
So Katie Martin's daughter, your mother, got to see the show.
Yes, she did.
Right? Like what was the experience of having your mom see the experience of her dad being represented on stage and getting to know more about the two of you?
You know, my sister and my mom and I were both at opening night for the premiere when I was not. I was playing. This is an incredible actor and singer and musician who is playing it. It must have been super weird for my mom, and she basically said as much, but she, as she always does, has like 3 notes on on everything. And this one was a comment about the religiosity and making sure that I was respectful about that. There was one kind of flippant comment in the play, and she was like, "I didn't like that, Lauren." I was like, "Note taken, Mom. Note taken. Thanks. I fixed it for this one, so we're good. We're good." And then I think it made her think about her past with him and the times that she could have done more or been there more, or so in some ways it was a bit painful because it brought up the regrets that she had. And you know, when somebody goes through something like that and you kind of get through it, it's not, you don't willingly go back to those memories and kind of wade around in them because it's really hard. And so we had some good talks after it about, you know, knowing how much we could do and knowing that we did all we could, and you can't do everything and you can't be everywhere, and those kind of conversations that even if you know rationally, you need to hear them emotionally when you hear that. And she liked the songs. She thought, I think he'd have liked this. And then she was like, I don't think he'd understood it, but I think he would have liked it. Which that feels about right.
Yeah, but that's got to be so sweet just to hear that he would like this, right? I mean, like that's at the end of the day, like you made it for him.
He watched Night Court like we all did. He's a big Larroquette fan. Come on, this is great.
Yeah, so we've talked about it a little bit, but let's just talk a little bit about John, because it's kind of a big deal to be able to get John Larroquette to be able to do this. What was just the experience? I guess just I'd ask both of you, like, what's your first just I guess like memory or thought of John Larroquette even before this?
You know, the first thing that I thought was when asked kind of why he tricked him into doing this. One of the things that he said was he's always loved radio. He was a disc jockey in the 70s or the 60s.
No, I didn't know that.
He was a disc jockey.
Of course he was.
Loves radio. He loves radio plays. He loves the audio form. He has a real respect for it. So this felt like a natural kind of extension of all of the work that he's done to do this kind of play. And second, his grandfather was Papa, like mine was. And so there was a lot of similarity in terms of understanding him to a point, but then not being able to really communicate with his grandfather. And he lived with his grandparents for most of his life. So I think those two things felt really real, but he's just charming and generous and giving and so game to just do it again, do it a different way. And so humble. He always makes fun that you know, everyone finds him tedious or something. And of course we're all rapt being like, he's so cool. I can't wait to see him.
I don't think we could have had a better time recording with him. I feel like we went on all of these wonderful tangents and he would tell us these great old Hollywood stories.
That's awesome.
It was pretty wonderful. Yeah, many of them are not repeatable, but they were pretty
Yeah, after each session, Danny and I'd be like, "Oh, that was a good session."
Like, what life are we living? We get to hang out with John Larroquette.
Yeah, and we got like an old timey poker story. Right?
Oh, that was a wonderful. Yeah, when we did some pickup recording the other day, we got a whole new story it was pretty great. Yeah,
so good. But I mean, it's amazing. He's kind of one of the greats, and it really felt like, again, one of those weird magical COVID things where people were free in a way they wouldn't be, and
that's right, and
willing to jump in on a project that they wouldn't have normally done. And so, you know, we're making some lemonade.
Well, no, because so just the process we went through, right? Like we identified that he would be great. Like our agents reached out to his agent, right? You had a conversation. He read a script. You and I had a conversation with him. We did a read through. Like we did several steps before he agreed to actually do it. And I don't know that any of us would have ever had all that time. to be able to do it. In fact, he would be working on a show because he's working on TV today, right?
Yeah.
So
I think they're rebooting Night Court. Yeah.
That's right. To be able to have those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, it's interesting because he's got 4 Emmys, right, and a Tony Award to be able to do. But you never know with somebody, like, did they just get cast in the right role and they ran with it, or are they really they could do anything and they happen to get that? And he kind of admittedly, you know, when asked like why he hasn't done more stage work, it's really just because he hasn't had the time. You know, it's like
we're good at all the other stuff.
We're so good at all the other stuff, and you just start working,
and
then you're on a TV show that runs for 12 years, and that's what you're doing, you know, to be able to do it. And so it was, you know, I feel like it was a bit of relief also to get in the room and be like, oh no, he's fantastic. He just never gets asked to do this because, you know, he's built his brand on being, you know, incredibly funny, but like, no, he can handle all of this, and he can handle the Shakespeare.
Handle the Lear, yeah.
That's
really
yeah.
He's great. And the heartfelt stuff. I mean, it's really poignant. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so dreamy, so dreamy.
Pretty great.
Are we gonna hear you singing or no?
You have to buy a ticket, I suppose. But I mean, the truth is, I'd always been a very nervous about singing, but in church, I sang all the time, and I loved it. It was my favorite part of growing up in the church when I was younger, was singing. And I felt, you know, you're allowed to in church. You don't care. God doesn't care how you sound. Got to sing from the heart. So it felt like that was a bit of kind of a coming home in terms of the songs in this part, which are half kind of old tunes, gospel tunes, hymns, and then half of some new songs written for this to kind of articulate really songs for him.
We should say written by you.
Yeah.
That was really good. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're now a songwriter too.
Oh Lord. Yeah, I guess so. But I don't know. It's just it's such a funny thing of writing something you're not qualified to do and doing it anyway, because the other side of it, because it matters emotionally, it matters authentically and truthfully to a lived story that I know really well. And so at a certain point, it doesn't matter if it's good based on any other standard than on the one that I'm holding for this particular play, which is a kind of messy truth. And it might not be in tune totally, or it might, have beyond not hit the beat every time, but that's part of why it's true and why it's messy. And the whole play kind of lives in that space of we're not looking for perfection, we're looking for honesty.
That's gorgeous. And how about that sound mixing of the banjo, Danny?
Oh, it's great. I love banjo.
Me too.
I saw it when Sean asked me to do the original one of these. I was so excited because my dad's he's from Oklahoma, big bluegrass fan. In fact, I have his Flat and Scruggs LPs.
Yay!
Wait for it. Yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah, I've been waiting to show those off.
Love. So
I love, I grew up, they always used to put on bluegrass at night, when we were going to sleep, it would be drifting down from there. And so I was so stoked to get asked to do a banjo musical, it's been wonderful. And Lauren's great. We had a really wonderful session the first time. We sort of figured out they're all, mostly just tracked live. They're all just kind of one take. Mm-hmm. There's no cutting or anything. They're just straight through. And it's like Lauren said, there's this beautiful honesty to the performances. I think it really comes through. I hope it does.
You know what I think is amazing that people don't think about when a banjo is in a show is a banjo is an instrument that is made to be played without amplification.
Oh, yes, we discovered that.
It's designed to be so loud that you can play it anywhere. So therefore, like in a theater, a banjo playing like blows everybody away, right?
You remember
like,
that we were gonna like mic it originally when we did it, like in Merrimack, which is quite a small.
You had to tamp it down, didn't you?
Yeah. Not only did we not mic it, we ended up putting like gum on the resonator to like quiet it.
Like shush.
Yeah, and then we had to take the banjo apart and fill it with T-shirts.
Oh, we did. I forgot that.
That's right. To be able to do it, and so then it was like it was full of T-shirts. It had gum all over it to be able to do it, and then it just sounded loud. You know, so like we were like, we'll take it.
Moderately loud.
Moderately loud, right? We'll take it. But it's amazing. You don't think about it like. When you think of someone playing a banjo, they're just standing outside playing it and everybody can hear. Like it's designed to be incredibly loud. And so in theater where we're like a little quieter, a little louder, you know what I mean? Like we're so overly specific. The banjo doesn't care about our cleverly orchestrated moments.
And it also
to be able to do
sound good when she tried to pluck it quietly. There's something about it. You really have
to be loud.
Do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
if you want to go down a YouTube hole, Steve Martin is an excellent.
Oh, incredible! Yeah,
I could watch it for hours.
And Bela Fleck, Steve Martin and Bela Fleck are some that I've spent too much time being like, how are you moving your fingers?
And Steve Martin makes it look like it's not you smiling until he jokes while he's doing
I know. Yeah, he's amazing.
Well, here on our show, every single week, we ask our wonderful guests to give us one word that embodies kind of the spirit of now for you, like in the space that you're in relation to the Heath, or, a word that's just resonating deep within you. And so I would like to ask you for that word. So as you marinate on that, I'm going to go to the Playwright first because it might be easier for Lauren to come up with something off the cuff.
I mean, the word open, the world, theaters are sniffing at coming at opening up again. The openness of telling a story that is true in a kind of open way. And openness.
That's great. That's great.
I think I'm going to go, I'm going to go with flux. I feel like the world is just I got my second shot right on Tuesday, which is very exciting, and I feel I saw like the first like live performances in LA are starting to book. The world is in flux, like, and also in a larger sense. I was just talking to somebody else about this. Like I feel like nobody wants to come back the same way, right? There's been so much good discussion just on so many levels about so many things about what we want our world to be like during COVID. We've had this, and now that the world is slowly opening, I feel like the whole idea of flux, right, is it's change, but it's also like solder. It's that stuff that sort of like we're just slowly starting to flow out into the world, and so it's like a time of great flux and so much potential.
Yes, I'm gonna ask you, Sean. How about you? We don't get to answer these very often. How about you, Sean? What word do you have right now?
Let me think. I guess I would say the word together, because I feel like what's happening right now, I had lunch today with Bernie, who is the executive director of Fifth Avenue in Seattle. And all we talked about at lunch was like the things that like we really felt like when we came back, theater should do that it hadn't done before, and the ways that we had let people down and could do better, and the things that we knew had never happened in our theater, but people just would not stand for anymore in terms of as an industry. And it really just felt like, I don't know when before I ever sat down with a leader of another organization and we just said like, okay, when we come back, like, how do we want to be? Like, that feels like a very different conversation to be doing it. And just also with some givens, right? Just with some givens of like, oh, that doesn't fly anymore. Or, we made a not to be repeated list of people that were like, I don't think they're going to work again, just because like the way that they treat people is no longer what we consider to be, regardless of whether they're a genius or not, it's just not going to happen that way. And so I guess I really feel together about it, because there's this like we talk about this mad rush, right? Everybody's like, oh my God, it's going to happen. Plan a season. season, theater is slow, right? Usually in November, we plan seasons for like a year and a half later, and we're all trying to do it like super quickly, but everybody's together enduring it. We're all trying to plan it at the same time. I tell you this, I've never talked to more other artistic directors in my life than I have during this time, because that's all we have is each other to be able to figure it out. So I would say together. How about you, Chanel?
Mine is excitement. And duh, right? Of course, my word is excitement. But it really is because I do feel like we are getting to a place where we can allow ourselves to be excited again. We can allow ourselves to hope. We can allow ourselves to give in to this notion. I mean, we're about to announce our season next month. That's huge. That's something that like we've been wanting to do for, over a year. And we're finally at the point where we can actively start doing that. And that's exciting to me, and you being on is exciting to me, and the Heath starting next week is exciting to me. So make sure you guys watch. That was my shameless plug also for you to come watch the Heath on the 14th. But we're just so grateful and so excited.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, great. Thank you both so much for being on our show. Thank you for, your brilliant work, and we can't wait for this Wednesday. Oh, look at that. Look at somebody coming on. Hold on, is that a Star Wars shirt?
It is a Star Wars shirt.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
We've had a long day, so.
Oh, of course. Of course. All right. Thank you both so much for being on the show. Thank you for all your work that we're excited to share next week with everybody starting Wednesday, right? They can go to arizonatheater.org to be able to sign up, to be able to get the audio play. Anything else, Chanel, we need before we go?
We just want to thank everyone for watching, and also for everyone for donating during Arizona Gives Day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Not only do we exceed our goal, but we still have donations rolling in. So thank you for your commitment to theater and us coming back to live. So we're really appreciative of it. So just wanted to give that little shout out.
Great. All right. And with that, we'll throw it to the call board for next week.
All right.
Thank you all so much.
This is your call board for April 9th through the 15th. Hi, I'm Will Rogers, Community Engagement Manager at Arizona Theater Company, and we hope you caught today's show where Sean and Chanel sat down with playwright Lauren Gunderson and sound designer Danny Erdberg from our upcoming ATC digital audio play, The Heath, Lauren's play, and it's the first time Lauren's ever playing herself in The Heath. So it's going to be something special with Lauren and with John Larroquette. You can't get better than John Larroquette, so we really hope you catch our upcoming offering of The Heath, April 14th through April 18th, to be more precise. So there's still time to check all that out. We recommend you to get a good pair of headphones and listen to it. That way it'll sound phenomenal. And because this is our first audio play, we thought we'd walk you through a few of the steps to get to access this amazing recording. First, just go to our website, real easy, Arizona Theater. That's theater, theatre.org. arizonatheater.org, and from right there you will see a beautiful scrolling image, or scroll past it till you see the large picture of John Larroquette, and you just click on that right there here on what we call our show page. Get all the 411 before you listen to the audio play. When you're ready, click on this large button right here too, as it reads sign up to listen to The Heath. It's important to us to know how many people we are serving when we bring this kind of work to Arizona, and this helps us do that. So we really appreciate you helping us and help keep the arts going in our fair state. And speaking of our fair state, we are excited to share that we have exceeded our $12,000 goal for Arizona Gives Day. ATC supporters like you helped to raise over $15,000, and donations are still coming in. Thank you to each of you who donated in support of the campaign. Now let's see what's happening in theaters around Arizona. First, let's head on up to Phoenix, where Arizona Broadway Theater still has Shout the Mod musical, created by Philip George and David Lowenstein. You can catch that through April 18th, and COVID protocols are observed, so check that out before it goes away. And opening this week at Phoenix Theater Company, My Way, a musical tribute to Frank Sinatra, created by David Grapes and Todd Olson. And that opens on April 14th. And let's head on down to Tucson, where the Scoundrel and Scamp Theater still has From the Fishbowl, a new devised work that they put together with the University of Arizona's Theater Studies students. You can catch it through April 18th. It's a streaming event, so completely safe. All right, it's a short call board this week, but as we head into summer, all of our departments are busy at work, coming up with classes and programming and all kinds of goodies coming at you. So stay tuned and see what we have for you. We got some cool stuff up our sleeve. And in the meantime, if you like the conversation we had today, please tell a friend, share it, subscribe, ring that bell, do all the things you know you can do to keep these amazing conversations coming at you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much, and have a great